In this video, I go hands-on with my favorite iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini features. But first, a brief word from our sponsor.
Big thanks to Declutter for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. With the new iPhones on the way, the value of the current generation models are going to drop, and on average, iPhones lose about 12% of their value after the launch of a new model. So you definitely want to check out channel sponsor Declutter. Declutter offers a really simple and safe way for you to sell your tech, including iPhones. Just tell Declutter what you'd like to sell, and then you can ship your devices out for free to be traded in. And instead of getting credit for your iPhone, Declutter pays in cash and up to 33% more than carrier buyback programs. Phones sold to Declutter are repaired, refurbished, and then given a new home, which helps in reducing a lot of e-waste. So check the link in the description to get the most value out of your current device, hassle-free. Declutter's offering a 28-day price lock guarantee for your iPhone trade-in right now, and you can get an extra 10% when you trade in any device with the code 9to5Mac. And trust me, you're going to want to do this as soon as possible. Thanks to Declutter for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube.
As a huge fan of the iPhone 12 mini, I was super excited to try out the follow-up version, the iPhone 13 mini. I also tried out the iPhone 13 baseline edition. And what I found here was a significantly improved experience, especially when it comes to things like battery life, which plague the iPhone 13 mini. So right now, let's go ahead and unbox the iPhone 13 and 13 mini. So here we go. Notice no cellophane this time around, got the little pull tabs. Still the same small box that we acquired last year. No charger in the box, as you can see. You have your Lightning to USB cable in your Design by Apple in California packet. You have a SIM eject tool, some regulatory and safety and handling information, and, of course, the real reason why I purchased this phone, the Apple stickers. And the first thing you see, it smacks you in the face a little bit, that brand new diagonal camera housing setup with the improved cameras. So let's go ahead and pull it out of the box. You see the protector paper on top. Let's go ahead and peel that back on the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 mini. And you can see that camera housing definitely sticks out more so than the previous version. So on the side, you have your antenna band, you have your mute switch, and then you have the two volume buttons, volume up and volume down. And if we shimmy down a little bit, you see your nano SIM tray. And you may not even use that this time around because this thing comes with dual eSIM. There's also an antenna band below that. And on the other side, you see an antenna band followed by the side button. And then you have your millimeter wave antenna area for 5G ultra wideband connectivity. And this, of course, is what gives you access to the fastest type of 5G, which is still fairly elusive even now. And then below that, you get another antenna band. On the bottom, another antenna band, and then you get your lightning port and then your speaker and microphones. And on the top, a single antenna band. On the rear, you get your Apple logo with the glass back. Now let's see how the iPhone 13 mini compares to the iPhone 12 mini on the left. You can see the 13 mini, the camera housing definitely protrudes out more. And of course you get the diagonal setup with speaker and flash, which brings much better camera features, including sensor shift stabilization from the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is super impressive. Here's the front of the iPhone 13. You may have noticed the smaller notch area is not as wide, and this contains the front-facing true depth camera. Above it, you have the speaker housing, but you can see right there side by side, the sensor housing on the iPhone 13 mini is noticeably narrower, but a little bit taller, as you can see there. Now let's get into the top features. The iPhone 13 and 13 mini enjoy virtually the same design as their predecessors, which is actually a good thing because I think this is the pinnacle of iPhone design thus far. Back are the flat anodized aluminum edges sandwiched between those two pieces of glossy glass on the front and rear of the phone. It's a design that mixes some of the best parts of the iPhone 4 era look with the modern edge-to-edge display. And one subtle difference between this year's iPhone 13 and last year's iPhone 12 is the notch area that houses the true depth camera system. On this year's iPhone models, the notch is noticeably less wide, but it's also slightly taller. But in reality, the changes really don't make much of a difference in day-to-day usage. The iPhone 13 comes with several new finishes, but I opted for the Starlight this time around since it's the color that seemed to be the most unique. And I don't think press photos on Apple's website do Starlight enough justice because it is downright gorgeous in person. Depending on the way that the light hits the flat anodized aluminum edge, it can look like rose gold, pearl, silver, and even a hint of violet. And the back glass material complements the band with a slightly off-white color that makes the sides and the camera housing pop. Now, I often find myself struggling to see my iPhone screen while outside, so any improvement to brightness is a welcome addition. And the difference between the iPhone 12 with 625 nits of max brightness versus the iPhone 13 with 800 nits max brightness isn't massive, but it is noticeable if only a little. And I use my Sony FX3 mirrorless camera to really determine the difference in brightness, and this camera is able to discern those brightness differences better than I can. Apple didn't make any mention of this in its press information, but the MagSafe connection on the iPhone 13 does feel slightly stronger than it did on the iPhone 12. Now maybe that's just like a placebo thing because I've heard other people say it, but I did test out the MagSafe wallet, the MagSafe charger, and the MagSafe battery pack, and all three products seem to be a bit more secure when attached to the iPhone 13. Let me know what you guys found down below in the comment section. Now, unsurprisingly, Apple includes 5 new live wallpapers that animate when pressed on the lock screen, and in my opinion, these new live wallpapers are much better than last year's editions. And all 5 new wallpapers also get dark versions, so you actually get 10 new wallpapers in total. And I think these wallpapers especially complement the new Starlight iPhone 13 finish. I thought the iPhone 12 mini was the perfect phone for those that desired a small and uber portable iPhone with all the power of its bigger brother and the same iPhone 4 inspired design. In my review of the iPhone 12 mini, I called it the best looking and best functioning smartphone that I've experienced in years. And the same thing goes for the iPhone 13 mini, except it's even better and it improves on the most glaring flaw of the iPhone 12 mini, and that is of course battery life. Now, Apple tried to address the battery life issues with the iPhone 12 mini by releasing the MagSafe battery pack. It's an accessory that I believe was designed first and foremost with the iPhone 12 mini in mind. Now, I think that the MagSafe battery pack remains a good fit for the iPhone 13 mini, but if you were struggling to make it through a full day on the previous iPhone, the improvements in battery life may be good enough for you to actually get by without needing an external battery. Apple has improved iPhone 13 battery life significantly thanks to the larger battery and more efficient system on a chip, with the smallest version gaining up to 3 extra hours of stream video playback. Now, obviously your mileage may vary depending on how you actually use your phone, but I've been able to make it through a full day on several different occasions without having to charge throughout the day. Rarely could I pull off a similar feat with the iPhone 12 mini, even when the device was brand new. To be clear, if you're looking for the best battery life in an iPhone, and battery life is the most important feature to you, get the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I mean, it's downright ridiculous battery life. But if the iPhone 13 mini is on your radar, you'll be happy to know that battery life is discernibly better, so much so that you may not even have to top up during the day. Now, for the first time, the iPhone gets a base level of 128 gigabytes of storage, double the storage of last year's 64 gigabyte base model, and without a year-over-year price increase. 128 gigabytes of storage is a significant amount of storage, especially for the non-Pro iPhones devoid of the storage-devouring ProRes video. If this is the model that works best for your budget, I think you'll be very happy with this storage level. Dual SIM functionality has been available on certain iPhone models for several generations now. In fact, in China mainland and a few other areas, users have been able to utilize 2 physical nano SIM cards since the iPhone XR and XS Max days. iPhone models in US territory have been able to enjoy dual SIM connectivity for several generations as well, but such functionality was split between a physical nano SIM and a virtual eSIM. For iPhone 13, however, Apple is now including dual eSIM connectivity, allowing users to enjoy 2 separate lines without utilizing a physical nano SIM card at all. Thanks to dual eSIM functionality, you can now easily move 2 lines between your iPhones at will. For a T-Mobile customer like myself, it's as easy as going into settings, selecting cellular, and then choosing add cellular plan. Now, on the surface, the A15 Bionic chip doesn't present the same kind of massive year-over-year gains that users might be used to, but it definitely remains a noteworthy upgrade over the A14 due to its increased efficiency and its performance, which is still really good. And this all translates to better performance with longer battery life. Now, the system on a chip keeps the same 6-core configuration with 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. Now, instead of comparing the A15 with previous generations like the A14, 13, Apple vaguely pits the performance of its newest chip against the competition. For example, Apple says that the CPU is up to 50% faster than the competition, and the 4-core GPU is up to 30% faster. It's safe to say that this year's chip is more so focused on refinements and efficiency, but it's still no slouch. And this can be seen via simple GPU and CPU benchmarks. Now, perhaps more importantly, there's a new 16-core neural engine that's capable of almost 16 trillion operations per second compared to the iPhone 12's 11 trillion. And the neural engine works in tandem with new technologies in iOS 15, such as live text, and should yield faster performance compared to previous hardware. And considering how much iOS relies on machine learning, this is a big improvement. Now, there's also a new image signal processor with improved computational photography. That's obviously going to come in handy for some of the new camera features. There's a new display engine, wider lossy compression support, a new video encoder and video decoder, and 2 times the system cache. So this is definitely a major update, although it doesn't have the brute force hit you over the head type of improvements that we've seen in the past. Now, this year's camera updates are big. The primary wide-angle camera gathers 47% more light for less noise, which is enabled by a bigger sensor with larger 1.7 micron pixels that capture more light. And this is combined with the same f1.6 aperture from last year. Sensor shift optical image stabilization is now on the wide-angle camera, which was a feature introduced on last year's iPhone 12 Pro Max. That's available on both the iPhone 13 and the smaller iPhone 13 mini. And sensor stabilization results in better low light photography and better stabilized videos shot with the primary wide-angle camera. Night mode also gains benefits from the new camera hardware with shorter capture times and better performance. In addition to the wide-angle camera upgrades, there's also a new ultra-wide camera with faster sensor for better dynamic range and low light photos. Other improvements include next-generation smart HDR4 and HDR video recording in 4K for the first time at up to 60 frames per second. Last year's model, 30 frames per second. And the TrueDepth front-facing camera, although not any hardware upgrades, gets new features including smart HDR4, HDR video recording at up to 60 frames per second at Dolby Vision, and cinematic mode and the new Photographic Styles, which we'll discuss up next. Cinematic mode brings the power of portrait mode to video for the very first time on the iPhone. It allows users to record videos in Dolby Vision HDR with adjustable shallow depth of field and adjustable tracking points in real time. Utilizing the improved neural engine and next generation ISP for better computational elements, cinematic mode will automatically recognize people in frame, allowing you to quickly rack focus between human subjects with just a tap. Users can also manually select objects in frame to quickly change focus and even double tap an object or person to enable autofocus tracking lock. What's really cool about cinematic mode, however, is the non-destructive editing nature. Like portrait mode, users have the ability to adjust depth of field in post, but Apple takes it one step further, allowing you to delete or add focus points during the edit, essentially allowing you to recompose your video and adjust your storytelling after the fact. Now, cinematic mode is in its infancy and as such is limited to 1080p video at 30 frames per second, and given that it's geared towards a cinematic experience, I wish Apple would have provided the option to film at 24 frames per second, but here's hoping that that will come via an iOS update. Even still, the groundwork is laid and I'm confident that cinematic mode will become even more impressive in the coming years. Photographic Styles for the iPhone 13 helps you to personalize the look of your images. Each preset, rich, contrast, vibrant, warm, and cool, is accessible via a swipe after tapping the Photographic Styles button. You can further customize the look of each photographic style by adjusting tone between rich and vibrant and temperature between warm and cool. The last photographic style that you choose will remain enabled until you switch a style or disable it and go back to the standard balanced style. Likewise, customizations made to each preset are saved until you change them. So it's basically a way to customize the image capture experience and save those customizations so that they are immediately available. So ladies and gentlemen, those were my favorite top features. What are your favorite iPhone 13 mini and iPhone 13 features? Let me know down below in the comments section, and thanks for watching. This is Jeff with 9to5Mac.
Thanks again to Declutter for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. With the new iPhones on the way, the value of the current generation models are going to drop, and on average, iPhones lose about 12% of their value after the launch of a new model. So you definitely want to check out channel sponsor Declutter. Declutter offers a really simple and safe way for you to sell your tech, including iPhones. Just tell Declutter what you'd like to sell, and then you can ship your devices out for free to be traded in. And instead of getting credit for your iPhone, Declutter pays in cash and up to 33% more than carrier buyback programs. Phones sold to Declutter are repaired, refurbished, and then given a new home, which helps in reducing a lot of e-waste. So check the link in the description to get the most value out of your current device, hassle-free. Declutter's offering a 28-day price lock guarantee for your iPhone trade-in right now, and you can get an extra 10% when you trade in any device with the code 9to5Mac. And trust me, you're going to want to do this as soon as possible. Thanks to Declutter for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube.